Now, there is a story of a woman named Hagar in the Bible who can relate to not being seen. And her story comes about in Genesis 16. She is an Egyptian slave to Abram and Sarai. And if those names sound a little familiar, it's because we know them as Abraham and Sarah. But God changed their name from Abram to Abraham and Sarai to Sarah. But before their names were changed, Abram had his first encounter with the Lord. In Genesis 12, when God called Abram to leave his family, his father, and all he knew in that land, and go to a land that God was going to show him. And he made a promise to Abram that he will make his descendants a great nation and bless Abram. So Abram, walking in faith, left all he knew, taking his wife and taking his nephew, and going to this land that God was going to show him. And they start developing a relationship, and he started growing in his faith. And over time, he developed some wealth. He also has some inheritance in land. So in Genesis 15, we see that Abram is getting a little concerned. Because when he left his native country, he was at first in his 70s, but now he's in his 80s, and he has a little wealth to give, and he wants to give it to an heir, but he doesn't have one. So he starts thinking and having this conversation with the Lord, saying, who am I going to give my inheritance to? Will it go to my servant Eliezer? And God responded to him by saying in Genesis 15:4, then the word of the Lord came to Abram, saying, this one will not be your heir, but one who comes from your own body will be your heir. And the Lord took him outside and said, now look to the heavens and count the stars, if you are able. Then he told him, so shall your offspring be. Abram at the time, believed the Lord, and it was credited to him as righteousness. So God saw that Abram was struggling with this promise that God gave him, that him and his wife Sarai, even though he's 80, in his 80s and she is in her 70s, that they will bear a child. He starts comforting him and encouraging him. But it leads us to the next chapter, which is chapter 16, 1 through 13. Now, Abram's wife Sarai had borne him no children, but she had an Egyptian maidservant named Hagar. So Sarai said to Abram, look now, the Lord has prevented me from bearing children. Please go to my maidservant. Perhaps I can build a family by her. And Abram listened to the voice of Sarai. So after he had lived in Canaan for 10 years, his wife Sarai took her Egyptian maidservant Hagar and gave her to her husband to be his wife. And he slept with Hagar, and she conceived. But when Hagar realized that she was pregnant, she began to despise her mistress. Then Sarai said to Abram, may the wrong done to me be upon you. I delivered my servant into your arms, and ever since she saw she was pregnant, she has treated me with contempt. May the Lord judge between you and me. Here, said Abram, your servant is in your hands. Do whatever you want with her. Then Sarai treated Hagar so harshly that she fled from her. Now understand that Hagar, an Egyptian slave, didn't have anything. She didn't have money saved up. She didn't have too many options of clothing, probably just the clothes on her back. And she probably was thinking, I'm about to have a child. How am I going to take care of this child? But the situation that I'm experiencing here is so bad that while pregnant, I leave. Hagar experienced from Sarai and Abram so much misjustice, so much mistreatment, that she chose to leave. And during this time, when Sarai is mistreating or about to mistreat Hagar, Abram had the opportunity to step in, to protect, to intervene and cover Hagar, but he chose not to. Instead, both Abram and Sarai were so convinced, so focused, so desperate to have what they desired, which was a child. And then also the areas of their character hasn't been worked out where they thought it was okay to treat Hagar like anything. Hagar then was a victim of their mistreatment that they treated her. And I'm pretty sure we all have been victim to something or someone before that caused us harm. Whether it was a bully who bullied us, or whether it was family members who took advantage of us, or friends who misused us, they didn't think about our well-being. They were too focused on their selfish desires to get what they wanted to have, that they didn't take in consideration how this will affect us mentally, physically, emotionally. All they cared about was their wants. And that harmed us. That hurt us. And in those moments, we felt not seen. In Kelli's story, when she depicted the time by the time she got to middle school, she talked about how she was at a private school. The kids knew each other ever since they were in kindergarten. But she never felt embraced. The kids will have birthday parties, small class, invite everybody else, and not invite Kelli. They wouldn't include her on things. They will sometimes allow her to be around, but it wasn't something that they openly armed and say, hey, you're our best friend. You're one of us. So by the time she got to middle school, there was a new girl that came. And I'm pretty sure Kelli was like, oh man, there's a new girl that joined the class, a new student. I have a possibility of having a best friend to eat lunch with, to share jokes with, to invite to my parties. Someone who can be beside me and I'm not alone. But as she was being openly and friendly with the young girl, she quickly saw that this particular young girl was not interested in being her friend. Instead, she started bullying Kelli and tearing her down verbally. Day after day, Kelli was experiencing this while she went to school. And the kids who were kind of allowed Kelli to be around have now sided with this girl. So the isolation, the walls just creeped in even more. Kelli is alone at school and she's being mistreated all the time. And it wasn't until the year after that the little girl left and Kelli found the truth of why this young girl decided to treat her this way. Because the whole time Kelli was like, I did nothing to her. I did nothing to her. Why is she choosing to treat me like this? And she found out that one of the students early on made this rumor up about the young girl and how the young girl felt about Kelli. And it began to spread all throughout the class. And I'm pretty sure the young girl who was new to the school, seeing this bad attention she was getting, was like, okay, I got to get this off of me. Maybe if I'm mean to Kelli, maybe if I treat her wrong and bully her, they will see that I don't have those types of regards to her. And they won't believe this rumor. Because truthfully, what we see is that the young girl wanted to be accepted. Little did she know Kelli wanted to be accepted too. It's just the young girl decided to hopefully get acceptance by hurting Kelli. Because sometimes hurt people hurt people. And that's not a blanket statement that I'm just covering over and you're like, oh, that's the reason why they act the way they do or have done the things that they've done. It's just because they're hurt. No, that's the why, and allows us to understand why they do it. But it's not to cover it. And if we're honest with ourselves, like I'm honest with myself, and you look yourself inward, you see that you have hurt other people too. And knowing that you hurt other people too before, it can bring humility. It allows me to extend compassion because I see that I'm no better than they are. So with that lens of compassion, with that lens of seeking to understand why people operate the way they do, when we look back at Abram and Sarai, we see that Abram being in his 80s, desperately wanting a child, and Sarai being in her 70s, desperately wanting a child, that they allow fear to creep up inside of them And they decided, both of them, to get what they want by any means necessary. And for Sarai, I can, for a woman's perspective, since I'm a woman, understand, I can understand to a certain extent that during that time period, there are not too many roles that a woman can have. Like you can be a slave, a servant, a wife, or a mother. And your value in the currency of that time period is based on the number of kids you can have. So Sarai, all this year, has been trying to have a kid, year after year. But each month, a period comes up and she starts questioning and wondering, why is this happening to me? And as time progresses and she gets into her 70s, and Abramson in his 80s, and they don't have a child, and if they have a child at this point, to their eyes, it's impossible. They start beginning to wonder if it's ever going to happen. And then Sarah hasn't had a period in years. Blood hasn't seen her. She hasn't seen a period. It's been dry. So that happening is totally out of the question in her view. But also, in this period of time that she's dealing with these emotions, she's probably wondering, how does my husband see me? Does he still see me the same, though I can't give him what we both desperately want? How am I looked about by everybody else? What is my value as a woman? So what her and Abram decide to plan on doing is in order to bandage the wound in their heart. And what they're deciding to do, and what they did do, was take Hagar and use her for their own advantage to get what they desired to have. Instead of waiting on the promised child, they were like, let us manufacture our own way and will the child that we desire. And the truth is that when we work outside of the will of God, we have to take in notice that our choices has consequences that not can only hurt us, but hurt others. So that hurt that they caused and the treatment that they caused during the time Hagar was there led her to run away. So it says here in Genesis 16:7, now the angel of the Lord found Hagar by a spring of water in the desert, in the spring along the road to Shur. Now understand, the roadway from Shur allows you to get to Egypt possibly, and that's possibly why Hagar is there. Hagar, servant of Sarai, he said, where have you come from and where are you going? I'm running away from my mistress Sarai, she replied. So the angel of the Lord told her, return to your mistress and submit to her authority. Now, I do want to put a disclaimer here. I don't want you to take this out of its context and believe, well, if I'm in this situation, I shall apply this into my life. No, if you are in any type of slave-like or abusive situation, whether you are being abused sexually, mentally, emotionally, or physically, please seek help. You deserve better. That is not an environment that is conducive for you. Seek help, seek the Lord, and ask someone, go to a therapist and get out of that situation. But back to the text of Hagar and the Lord. Then the angel added, I will greatly multiply your offspring, so that they will be too numerous to count. The angel of the Lord proceeded, behold, you have conceived and will bear a son, and you shall name him Ishmael. For the Lord has heard your cry of affliction. He will be a wild donkey of a man, and his hand will be against everyone, and everyone's hand against him. He will live in hostility toward all his brothers. She gave this name to the Lord who spoke to her. You are the God who sees me, she replied. Here I have seen the one who sees. When she said, you are the God who sees me, understand what that meant to Hagar. She was a slave. No one saw her. Culturally, they didn't see her, the people there. Her masters didn't see her. But the God of the universe saw her and she recognized it. What God did is that the angel of the Lord came and not only saw her, he saw all that was happening. He saw her suffering. He didn't turn a blind eye to what Abram and Sarai did to her and the persecution and the injustice. He saw her and he also met her. He went and found her at this spring in the desert of Shur. Also, God heard her. It says in the text that the angel of the Lord said, "You will conceive a son and you should name him Ishmael. For the Lord has heard your cry." The name Ishmael means a God who hears. God hears me. So what God was showing Hagar is that I not only hear you, but I answer you. So every time that she said that young boy's name to the day of adulthood, Ishmael, Ishmael, she is reminding herself, God hears me, and he answers me. And I am reminded of the encounter I had with him at the spring where he met me there. He not only met me there, God blessed me. Because God also told her, I will greatly multiply your offspring so that they will be too numerous to count. The highest honor a woman can have is that her descendants will be so numerous no one can count. A woman that is in a placement of being so low that no one sees her because she's a slave. Little does anybody know but her and the Lord that she will have so many descendants. What God was saying is that I saw what Abram and Sarah did to you and their sin, and I will use that sin for my glory and bless you. And her descendants will be so many. I found that interesting because if you remember in Genesis 15, that God was talking to Abram, encouraging him and said, hey, look out at the sky, the stars. There's so many, can you count them? And the same thing he said to Abram, similarly, he has said to Hagar. Now, Abram and Sarai, who are Abraham and Sarah, are patriarchs of our faith. Abraham is a phenomenal example of faith. If you keep reading in his life of the steps he took in walking in faith with the Lord. And yes, he has a child named Isaac with his wife Sarah. And through the descendants, we get the nation of Israel's and kings like David. And then if you keep going forward, you will see that through Virgin Mary, that Jesus Christ is born during that lineage. Powerful. But God did not just see Abraham, nor just Sarah. He saw Hagar. And he went to her and made her a promise. So it blows my mind that God cares not only about Abram because he matters, but he was also laying Hagar, Nora, you matter too. You matter. And that's why she had an encounter with the angel of the Lord. Now, the angel of the Lord is depicted in the Old Testament of being the pre-incarnated of Jesus. In the New Testament, we get the incarnated Jesus, but in the Old Testament, the angel of the Lord, Jesus, rarely appears, seldomly with people. He appeared with Abraham, he encountered Moses and Gideon, and he also met with Hagar because she mattered that much to him. And what Hagar was able to recognize when she said, you are the God who sees me, that I have now seen the one who sees me. She has now fully realized the God that my master served has come and met with me. He has had this encounter with me. This is the God they have spoken about. This is the God they placed their faith in. He has met me here. Now, God doesn't just overlook injustice and things wrongly done towards us. And there are repercussions for our sins and consequences. And we see this a little later on when the angel of the Lord told her that her son will be like a wild donkey and his hand will be against everyone, and everyone's hand against him, and he will live in hostility toward all his brothers. That was basically alerting her, a foreshadow of that the line of Ishmael and the line of Isaac will be in contention with each other. It will be tense because the consequences that Abraham and Sarah had for operating outside of the will of God has created this. But one thing I know for sure is that when people don't see me, when people don't acknowledge I'm there, when I'm looked over, when I'm misused, when I am taken advantage of, and I feel alone and I'm in a room and it's just me sitting on a couch crying or in a chair, what I really want is someone to come and not only see me, but hear me and wipe my tears. But Jesus does something even better. He pulls up beside us in those moments and he collects our tears. It says here in Psalms 56:8 that you keep track of all of my sorrows. You collect every single one of my tears in a jar, in a bottle, and you record it. Meaning God doesn't miss out on everything you have cried about. Every single tear matters to him. Tears are that precious to him. And he records it and he notates it. It doesn't go past his eye. It doesn't go past his ears while listening to you. In those moments, it allows me to know that he sees me. And no, I wasn't able to see what was going on with Kelli when she was in middle school. But God did. And I don't know too much about you, but whatever you have gone through or whatever you are going through, please do know he sees you. He hears you. The question, though, is, do you recognize that Jesus sees you?